Joining us now here on In the Circle on D1 Softball, powered by 643. Of course, she is the greatest Clemson Tiger player of all time. Was a National Player of the Year award winner, a four-time All-American, an ACC Player of the Year multiple times. Led Clemson to multiple ACC championships and NCAA tournament appearances. Just recently retired, played in the AUSL at the Carolina Blaze. Of course, entering now a second season at Furman as the assistant coach there. So it's a lot of resumes. Of course, he's also played for the U.S. national team in the past. I speak of Valerie Cagle joining us here for the first time on In the Circle. Man, that's a lot. You got a lot on your resume. It's a good resume.
Yeah, that's a lot when you put it all out there like that.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Let's start with the more recent news. You decided to retire from playing. You try to do it kind of low key. Coach Cara Dill kind of spilled the beans. I don't know if it by accident or she was asked by a media person about it the day before your last game. Spoiler, your last game was tremendous. But just talk about that decision. What led to your decision here to say, I'm done playing?
Yeah, so I think for me, like looking from the outside in, it kind of felt like probably a little bit of a surprise. My decision was made in October of 2025, so 2 months before I got drafted. I feel like I've been going back and forth a little bit, honestly, since probably 2023 of just, when am I ready to be done? I think going into college, playing after college was never a thought because it wasn't really an option when I got there. And so for me, it was just like, okay, these are bonus years. And so, kind of how do I want to approach them, take advantage of them, et cetera. So after I finished my fifth year, I thought that I was going to be done. And then I got drafted for the AU All-Star Cup at the time. And so I played 1 year and I was like, I'm going to be done after that. And then played that and obviously wasn't done. So was in, Europe last year playing and then kind of got back from Europe and just was training for a couple games last fall and just kind of had the wave come over me of like, like I'm ready to be done. And I wanted to play 1 more year because there were just a couple things that I wanted out of the last year. Like I wanted my parents to be able to come to games. I wanted them to be at my last game. I just designed my glove with Mizuno, and so I wanted to be able to play with that. And so there were just a couple things that I was like, I really want to do this before I'm done. But yeah, it was I knew um, going into it that that was going to be it for me. But yeah, it wasn't something that I wanted to be public because I wanted to just be able to play and not have the, oh, is this going to be her last at bat? Or like, I'm done. And like, how are you feeling about it? It's like, I have no idea. I need some time to process it. Right. And so, as much as I knew, it was something that I just kind of wanted to keep quiet, just be able to kind of walk away, just knowing that I was in a good spot.
It's a compliment when people just don't assume that because you feel you could still play at a very high level. You proved that at the end there. You had a great monster last game. As you got to the end of the season, did it start to hit you? Did you feel any different? Like what was it like towards the end when you realized, oh, the finish line's here?
Yeah, I think for me, I mean, I really, really enjoyed my time with the Blaze this summer. That we had a lot of fun playing together, and so that was a really great way to end it. And just the people were awesome. And so, I think for me though, like I was so prepared to be done and so ready in a way of like, yeah, sometimes things are gonna hit me, or I'm probably gonna wake up in 6 months and be like, man, I'm not training anymore. This is weird. But I think just like physically too, I was just so ready to be done. In college, I had two surgeries, and I'm not going to say that I haven't had issues since, right? And I don't exactly have a very healthy shoulder. So, just some of those things of like my body's ready to be done, but also like because I had had 9 months to prepare for the fact that I was going to be done, like I was in a really good spot of, okay, like let's just go make these last couple games count with the people that I get to do it with. And I don't really care how it ends, right? Like, yes, I do. I'm too competitive to not, but at the same time, like, it's not about the performance at the end. It's just about like, hey, like, where am I at? And if I'm in a good spot, then like, great, that's exactly what I wanted.
It sounds to me, you could correct me if I'm inaccurate in this. It sounds like you felt like pretty much your playing urges is out of your system. It was kind of on empty by the end. Is that accurate, or did you feel you got it out of everything you wanted out of the sport from a playing standpoint?
Yeah, I definitely think that I mean, I got everything and more that I wanted out of the sport. I had things that when I got to Clemson as a freshman, I was like, I want to do this and that. And I don't know that I actually thought it was realistic, and then I did them all. And so it's just one of those things of like I accomplished so much more in the sport than I ever thought. And so I think that's something that I can, be proud of, but also just walk away feeling like I completed kind of what I set out to do in that sense on the field.
How much of the decision was also, hey, I'm entering this chapter now as a coach. I want to focus and get all my time on that and not try to split that with playing. How much did that play a factor in your decision?
It really didn't, honestly. Mary Beth has been great. And, when I took this job and talked with her about it, I was very upfront about like, hey, I'm still playing. If that's a problem, then like this probably isn't the right fit. And she's been fantastic supporting my decision to do that. Jumping into practice if I need or just those kind of things. And then even like our other assistants, Christina and Emmy, like they'll go lift with me and we ran stadiums together and like they kind of, really help support me on that side too. Emmy will throw BP to me if I needed it. And so they made it very easy. I definitely think that I am at the point in life where like I am just kind of ready to close that chapter and move on. But not necessarily because of the coaching side, just, it's been 18 years and at some point it needs to come to an end and I'm just kind of ready for that chapter to close.
Well, I think the OKC Spark wished it was probably earlier that you had retired because you left with a bang. Take me through that last game. What were the emotions like? Of course, you had the weather that suspended it to the next morning there, but you all jumped on OKC there from the get-go. And at that point, people had known that you were going, that'll be your last game because Coach Dill was asked about you in the post-game presser the day before, and she kind of let the bag out of it. So take me through that 24-hour window because I'm sure your phone started blowing up as soon as word started getting out, and then you had an incredible finish.
Yeah, I mean, I got a message right after, that press conference, just kind of letting me know that it had gotten out. And I was asked to provide a statement, which I declined. Again, it was just like not something that I wanted to deal with at that time. But I don't really think that right, like it didn't really affect me much. It was one game. It was, I just need to go back to the hotel and sleep and come back and play this game. And so, it didn't change anything about like what I needed to do on the field. And even our sideline reporter that day, she was awesome. Like she came up to me and was asking about it, and I was like, "Hey, like that wasn't something that was supposed to get released yet, and that's not something that I want to discuss right now." And so she was like, "Great, so we just won't even mention it on the broadcast." And so that was something that I thought was awesome from their point of view, and really thankful that they were respectful in that way. And so for me, it was just kind of like, hey, like honestly, don't even think about the fact it's the last one, right? Like, yeah, take it in, but it's just something that, at some point the game's just the game. You've done it so much, and it's just, how do you show up? And I think something that I really was able to feel this year that I would love if more people could figure out how to feel, or if, if I could have done it earlier, it's just like there's no pressure anymore, right? Like I'm not trying to make a national team. I'm not trying to get a contract next year. Like there's nothing that I'm working toward. And so yes, I'm way too competitive to not want to do well, but at the same time, like there's just a freedom that I'd never felt before on the field. And so I think that was just like the big thing for that last game of like, how do I focus on that? And like the outside stuff's the outside stuff, right? But and it's gonna get out eventually. The fact that I mean we managed to keep it a secret for that long, honestly, kind of it was impressive to me. But like it's one of those things that how do you find that freedom and how do I get to just enjoy this last game? Just kind of for what it is.
Well, I think you enjoyed it pretty well. Did pretty high note. When it was over, any feelings, any emotions? Did it feel any different after that last game? Has it hit you?
Yeah, honestly, I don't really know if it has because it's one of those things that like I probably wouldn't start training for next season until November anyways, right? And so like this would be an off time. And I am still working out and doing things and so I don't know that it has. I think like deep down obviously like I know I'm not doing that again. But at the same time like it kind of just feels like another season ended. So I'll be interested to see, kind of when that sets in a little bit more, and if anything comes with that. But for right now, like it's been a good couple weeks just to try and take a step back and just, you know, the summer was pretty crazy with travel and all that. So just try to take it easy for a little bit.
Yeah, it'll be interesting how you feel, 6, 7, 8 months from now, and I'm sure there's going to be players or teams like, are you still sure you retire? Like, because they're going to still make sure that you haven't changed your mind because they obviously, with the type of player you are. So be prepared for that, probably. For those people, because that first year is going to be I've always talked to a lot of athletes. That first year is sort of the toughest one because you're adjusting.
Hmm. Yeah, I think for me, at least I'm hoping, kind of with my decision to stop pitching after 24, like that part of my career, it was an adjustment after that to, like continue and not be doing that. And so I'm hoping that maybe that was a little bit of a taste of, walking away from one part of it and then kind of prepared me a little bit for ending in general.
What do you want people to say about your play, your legacy as a player?
I think for me, the most important part is not what I did on the field, right? But just more like who I was off the field. I think one of the biggest compliments that I could have received, Coach Dill told me this year of like, hey, like we don't know when you show up, like if you're starting or not. Like you show up the same person every day. And so I think that's something for me of just like being a consistent person and just being someone that my teammates know that if they need me, I'm there. And just more focused on like who I was, not so much of what I did.
How are you a different player as you leave the sport as a player than you were, say, in 2020 when you were part of history there with Clemson and playing their first ever program game in Orlando at a UCF tournament, which is where I got to see you in person for the first time. And I remember talking to Coach Ripman afterwards, and he talked about how you were going to be a big part of the future of the program. So clearly he knows what he's doing because he was right on that. But how have you changed over that time?
I think, I mean, honestly, like first off, obviously it's just time, right? Like I was barely 18 during that. And so there's just a lot of maturity that has to happen during college. And so there's just a lot of that. But I think too, like I remember the first game that I started in the circle at that tournament, like I think I gave up like 10 runs to Duke and I was like, man, like what am I doing? Like I know I've always had the confidence that I could hit at that level, but I was like, why am I doing this? Am I actually good enough to pitch at this level? And so I think a big thing is just like the confidence that like I can do hard things, right? Like it's gonna be tough and it's gonna be easy, but like life just keeps throwing things at you and you're just gonna keep taking them and you're just gonna keep moving on. And I think too, like one of the coolest things about this sport is just all the opportunities that I've gotten from it and all the people I've been able to meet. It's like I look back and I'm like, man, well, if this hadn't have happened, then this never would have happened. And even though I didn't enjoy that, like it turned into this or those kinds of things. And so I think honestly the biggest thing is like just the way that I can look at life a little different of just like, okay, so this is one chapter, like how is it going to build into the next? And what can I learn from this and take from that to, make myself, more prepared or just those kinds of things. But I think for me, like I never would have become the person that I have without all those experiences. And so, like, I'm so thankful for Clemson and just all my different experiences along the way to kind of help shape me more as a person than anything. But I think on the field, man, like, no way, at that age, I was as confident as I am and just as sure of myself as I am now.
Have you had a chance to reflect on your time at Clemson and realize how much history you were a part of? Whether you mentioned that opening game, I know it didn't go the way you'd have liked, but that was the first ever game Clemson ever played was against Duke in Orlando in that tournament. I think you got a win against Georgia, I want to say, later that year, which I thought was a turning point. You could correct me if I'm wrong. Was a turning point for you in there. You got to play at that home, beautiful facility at home, getting to the first ACC championship, getting to the NCAA for the first. Have you thought of all the history? You're always going to be a part of a lot of the first in Clemson softball history.
Yeah, I think you realize to an extent, right? And I always say like it's probably going to take me at least 5 years before I can at least like really understand all of that. I think that I part of why I chose Clemson is because you get, like who says no to being a part of that? Right? Like how many times do you really get the opportunity to be a part of building something? And none of us, I don't think any of us thought it was going to blow up that quickly, right? And so, yeah, no, that Georgia game, my freshman year was our first ranked win and it was a really big deal. And then obviously COVID was unfortunate, kind of shut down that momentum. But I think it's one of those things that like I know kind of the impact, but I also like can't understand like how much it is and it's always going to be easy for me to be like, yeah, like I was a part of it, but we also had, this person and that person and everybody doing everything. I mean, no way we would have been able to do that, right? If our coaches weren't so great at recruiting and, just the people they were able to get in early on. So I think it's definitely gonna take some time for that to kind of actually feel the weight of, what my career has been to an extent.
Was that Georgia game a turning point for you? Because I feel like you were different after that game. I remember that was like a big deal. Like, whoa, they beat Georgia. A bounce, win there. Obviously playing at home, it was a great atmosphere. All that. Just talk about that game. It's because it felt like it was a turning point for the program, turning point for you personally. Because you guys kind of never looked back after that. It seemed like in retrospect.
Yeah, I think that's one of those games that right, like you start a program and you don't know what to expect, and it's like, okay, well, like no one's out to get us, right? Like there's nothing, we're just Clemson that just started, and we're just gonna show up and we're gonna kind of do our thing, and I think there is like a little bit of a freedom and being the underdog and being the new people on the block, and I think for us that game was like, oh, like we can actually do this, right? Like we are actually capable of playing with some of the best teams in the country. And I think it was kind of the same thing for me, right? Like in the circle, I mean, they always have a great offense. And so being able to, kind of keep them to a minimum there, right, that is a big turning point. And I mean, there were so many good defensive plays made in that game, right? Like that could have easily kind of gotten out of hand. But again, it's one of those games, it's like a complete team win, and you're like, oh, okay, so this is what we can do. And so I think not that we didn't have moments of, man, we can be pretty good before that, but I think that was the big game of like, oh wow, like we actually are doing what we're doing right now, and like we are capable of doing things that maybe we didn't think were possible right now.
Yeah, I think a lot of the nation kind of started taking notice after that game. It started taking you seriously. I think everybody's like, "Oh, this is a nice story." Played up until that point, but then it was like, "Oh, wait, maybe they could contend in the ACC." Which you end up spoiler, you would end up doing that in the years to come. Do you have a favorite moment from your playing career?
Um, Honestly, that's hard. I think there's so many great experiences. I think the things that I remember the most are just the off the field, like the dumb moments of, you're traveling and you went to get ice cream, and like the dumb conversations, or like being able to, have different roommates on the road and get to know people in different ways. I always feel like I remember the off the field more than the on the field. But of course, I mean, there's going to be moments like hitting, a home run in the seventh inning against South Carolina, right? Like those are fun moments that you're not going to forget. Or, just different stuff like that. So I think for me, it's definitely mostly the off the field, but yeah, there's so many good memories on the field too.
What's it like being, when you won that National Player of the Year award and joined that incredible exclusive club of a National Player of the Year? What was your reaction when you found out you won that? Were you in shock? Were you like, and now years later, as you see other players winning that award, you're like, and you realize, oh wait, my name gets brought up too. Like you're a part of an incredible list there of players that have won the National Player of the Year.
Yeah, right after, honestly, I I had to give a speech, and I had it folded up like so small in my pocket, and my hands were shaking and I could not get the thing opened. And I couldn't tell you what I said. I have absolutely no idea. And it was one of those things that was just like, it's one of those moments that you almost wish you could just like go and sit in the corner for a minute and just like watch, because it's like it's so overwhelming of like, wow, like they just said my name. I don't think I actually don't think that I actually thought I was going to win it. And looking back, it's like I had great numbers. Like I had both, numbers on both sides, and that was an incredible year. So like, why would I think that? But um, I mean, honestly, just like respect to Maya and Skylar that year, right? Like they also had incredible years, and so it's a crazy class of people to be with. But yeah, I mean, after I finished giving my speech and went upstairs, like, we had a videographer there, and I think I handed them the trophy, and I was like, hey, like I need to just sit for a minute, like I need to just be alone. And so one of those things is just like trying to process it all. And yeah, even now, like since I've won it, I get to, put in a vote for top 50, top 25, top 10, top three every year. And so it's kind of cool to like be just be a part of something like that. And I mean, the last couple years, right? Like numbers are absolutely insane. I look at my numbers and I'm like, man, if I had been playing right now this year and had those numbers, like I never would have won it. And so I think this year was incredible, right? Like you've got people who got left out of the top three that could have won it. And so it's cool to see, how the sport's growing, but also like, yeah, like being a part of something like that. I mean, that's one of the things that I said when I got to college, like I'm gonna win National Player of the Year, and I'm like, no, you're not. And then you do one of those things, and so that's one of those thrill moments of like, wow, like, you know, like how kind of like how did I do that? But it's really cool to be able to look back on, and then also like just the pride of being able to bring that back to Clemson, right? Of like I'm trying to build a program and I'm able to do things like that. It's just for the growth of that program and for the sport in this state, like that's incredible. So
Well, and you did it on both sides as a pitcher and as a hitter. I remember this because last year you were voted into the D1 softball all quarter century list, top 25 best two-way players of the quarter century, which was another high honor there. And I remember looking at your resume, your numbers, I'm like, man, you were awesome on both sides to the point where I remember, and we'll get to your coaching side here. When you got hired at Furman, my first initial reaction was, "Wait, is she going to be the pitching coach or the hitting coach?" Like that's how good you were there. What was it that you were able to excel at both sides of the ball, both offense and pitching? Take me through that as a player as you were growing.
yeah, I think for me, like I would always consider myself more of a hitter than a pitcher. I still would now, and through college, I would still do it. I would joke that I was a hitter that pitched sometimes, or a lot of the time. And so I think hitting is the thing that I always just loved and fell in love with, and it's always been my favorite part of the game. I think for me, pitching was always the challenge, right? Of like I wasn't great at it for a while, and so it's like how like I'm not gonna let this beat me. Like I'm gonna figure this out, and so kind of how do I do that? And then when you get to college, right, like it's a lot, right? Like you're training 20 plus hours a week and trying to find the time to train outfield and hit and pitch and eventually infield, right? Like it was a lot, but I think for me there was never it's not like there was never another option, but like it's just what I always did. So it was just normal for me. And so I think too, like a lot of mechanical things are relatable hitting to pitching, and so that kind of helped make things make sense in my head, as I can kind of go back and forth. And then obviously, right, like as a pitcher, okay, I want to learn how to throw what a hitter wouldn't expect here, or as a hitter, like what do I think the pitcher's going to throw? And so I think being able to balance those back and forth was always kind of fun for me. But for me, it was always something that I was going to do both. And when I was going into picking a college, it was who's going to give me the opportunity to do both. And if they said like, no, we don't want you to pitch, or no, we don't want you to hit, then I was like, okay, like I'm not interested. This is something that is important to me, and obviously, yes, like I need to prove that I deserve a spot in the lineup. I'm not just expecting you to hand it to me, but I don't want to go somewhere that's not going to give me the chance to do both. So that was something that was very important to me. But yeah, I mean, I always love, I mean, hitting, I could go out and hit for hours. And so it's always been fun for me.
I appreciate your candor too, like because I've always asked two-way players that I always dodge the question because I always ask them, "Do you consider yourself a hitter that pitches or a pitcher that hits?" And they kind of dodge the question. There's sometimes they're like, "I feel like I'm both." They don't like. I can tell sometimes they look at me like I don't like your question there. But I really appreciate your honesty. You feel like you were a hitter that pitched. Why do that's so fascinating from that standpoint? How has that knowing both sides of the game, how has that helped you now as you've gotten into coaching?
Yeah, I think for me, like I played what, six different positions in college. Like I played first base, I played outfield, I hit, I pitched. And so one, I think it just gives me a better overall understanding of the game through experience of like I have experienced so many parts of the game. And so it gives me a little bit of a different perspective there. But two, I think when I'm looking for a job, it gives me a little bit more flexibility just to be able to coach a lot of different things. It's kind of funny that you were like, is she going to be the hitting coach or the pitching coach? I don't really touch pitchers. Like I haven't really been in bullpens much, and it's not that I won't, but it's just not a need that we've had on staff. And Christine and I tag team the hitting, but I work a lot with infield. And so that's been fun for me too. Of like pitching was a big part of my game, and sometimes I think that people forget about the rest of my game because of the pitching side. And so it's kind of been fun to be able to step into a different role there and focus on something that maybe I had to develop later on in my career. And so it's like now how can I help our athletes develop that as well?
You know this podcast, how this works very well. You just spoil one of my questions there about your role as a coach there. But when was coaching always the plan, or did it evolve to being a plan? When did coaching start entering your thought process? Hey, I want to be a coach.
Yeah, I coached travel ball for a couple years when I was in college. So I would go out in my summers if I had time in the fall. And I really enjoyed it. And it just when I graduated, I was just like, I need to get away from the college side for a little bit. I just need a little bit of a break. And so ended up moving to Texas for like 7 months and then, went to Europe for 3 months to play and was in Europe and I was like, man, like I miss the coaching side. And so just kind of looking to see what popped up and I was just on Instagram one day and saw that Furman had hired a new coach and so I didn't know Mary Beth, but obviously I knew Furman just because of playing there or we played here and we'd play him every year and so but I didn't have a prior relationship with Mary Beth, and I just sent her an email. And I was like, hey, like if you're looking to hire, like if you're looking to fill spots like coaching staff, I'd love to have a conversation. And so kind of just went from there. And I always would joke that, it could either go really well or really bad, right? Like you don't know somebody and so you don't really know. And it's been awesome. Like I absolutely love our staff. And so to answer your question, no, coaching was not the plan. After I graduated, I said that I would never coach in college, and here we are going into year two. So, I really enjoy this. I absolutely love the ops side of it. I do kind of all of our travel and, food and all that, and so I really like the behind the scenes and that kind of thing. So I could definitely see myself, at some point shifting a little bit more into that. But for now, like I, really am enjoying the people that I'm with and feel like I'm learning a lot. So I the cannot complain about the path that we have, kind of gone on.
Sounds to me like you're a versatile player. Like, so you're a versatile coach. You can do a lot of, you have wearing a lot of hats.
Yeah, and I mean, I kind of when I got the job, I asked Mary Beth to kind of give me some of those ops, you know, tasks just because it's something that I always thought that I had an interest in, and I was like, here's the time to test it out. And that's something that I love about being at the mid-major level is that I have to do that, right? And so like I'm getting experience on the coaching side, but I'm also getting so much experience on the ops side as well.
Where you mentioned you played in Europe, and where did you hang out in Europe? Where did you play in Europe?
So I was in the Dutch league in the Netherlands for 3 months.
Describe that experience.
Yeah, that was really cool. I think for me, that was the first season that I had that I wasn't pitching. And so there was definitely a little bit of an adjustment there. And as much as I absolutely love the fan support that we had at Clemson and obviously what the AUSL has, I think it's really good for me to just kind of get away and just play. And, there wasn't really many people there and no one really cared who I was. And so I really just got to play. And I think that was really good for me and also put me in, a spot to where I could come back and play in the AUSL this year and enjoy that experience more. But yeah, I mean, I cannot complain one bit about being able to just travel around Europe for 3 months and play a little bit of softball.
I mean, could be worse. It's not a bad lifestyle there. You mentioned you didn't know if you would be a coach. That was not the goal, until you kind of evolved, it just played out that way. Have you thought about what would you be doing if you weren't coaching?
So if you kind of add both my degrees together, it goes a little bit of like the healthcare admin route. And so I could definitely see something kind of along those lines. Some of my favorite classes in college were my health classes, and so I've thought about that, but for right now, this is where God has me, so we're gonna just kind of ride it out until He tells me that it's supposed to go somewhere else.
Fair. You mentioned you had not known Coach Dennison at the time. Take me. What's it like there as you two meet? You do. You reach out. You kind of talk philosophy. Like what's that like? Obviously, you both connected because you were brought in and you're still on the staff. Of course, Christina Burkhart is on the staff as well. Just talk about the three of you there and how you all connect.
Yeah, well, so Mary Beth, she had, she got back to me and was like, yeah, like, I'd love to talk, just call me whenever. And I was still in Europe, and so there was a time change. And so I just kind of called her, and I think she was like at the field, and the kids were just running around, and so it was one of those things where I had interviewed, other places during that time, and it just like felt so formal for those interviews, which like, great. And Mary Beth was just like, okay, so like, what do like, what are you thinking? And just all these things, and it just I like to think that I'm a decent judge of, people. And I think for me, like it just felt instantly like it just was like a comfort that was there right away. And then yeah, Christina's been awesome. I mean, we played against each other 1 year in college. And so, I knew the name, I didn't know her personally. And But yeah, I mean, the second that I got back from Europe and, kind of took the job and I met her, she was recruiting at Alliance and I was out there, coaching travel ball one last time. And so, but yeah, I mean, we have so much, we have honestly have a great time together. And Emmy Bizarre also, she was our GA last year and she's still on staff. And so I think just the four of us, it makes doing this job so much easier when you have people that you can get along with so well, but also people that like you can disagree with and that's okay. Right. And like you can still kind of figure out like, okay, maybe I thought this and you thought that. So like, how are we going to figure this out? And so I think we have a lot of respect for each other. And so I think that makes this a much more enjoyable environment to work in.
Plus, I get a sense you're in, you want to build this program up in a lot of ways, similar to Clemson, where you kind of had to help build the program up as a player. Now you're doing it as a coach at Furman. It's a mid-major, but you're familiar with that surroundings there and all that. Do you sense that to hear you're all part of this unique process here as you build this program up?
Yeah, and I think all of us have a lot of experience of at a high level, right? Like Mary Beth was on staff at Michigan for a little bit, and Christina played at UNC in Michigan, and Emmy was very successful here at Furman. And so I think, there's an expectation that all of us kind of have and a standard that we want to bring to the program. And I think for me too, like it's cool to be a part of because, right, like two of my coaches at Clemson used to be coaching at Furman. And so when they were here, like they had a really great team and, they were contending for SoCon titles all the time and, maybe making a regional if they could win the championship. And so I think to be a part of, even just kind of building back their legacy a little bit, right? Of, KJ did great things here. And so like, how can we help get that program back to where it was then? Like the team that I remember playing in college, that it was like, man, we got to go play Furman. Like they weren't an easy midweek, right? Like they weren't an easy team to play against. And so I want that to be what this program gets back to.
Yeah, it's pretty good. SoCon's tough league too. It's top 10 league a couple of years ago there. What did you learn last year as a coach on the staff there that you hope you're applying to this year and beyond?
Yeah, I think I mean, last year there were just so many different things to learn, right? Like we were a whole new staff, and so we're trying to get to know each other and we're trying to get to know our players. Um, but I think the biggest thing that I want our athletes to kind of really buy into this year to try and instill in them is just that competitiveness. Obviously, yes, like it takes great athletes to be able to win, but I think good athletes can become great athletes if they have a mindset of being competitive. Right? Like some of the best athletes, maybe they aren't the most skilled, but they have that mindset and they have that want to and that will to. And so I think if we can really grow in that area, obviously, yes, like we're going to train skills and we're going to do that and we're going to become better on the field, but also like I think that just competitive mindset and a little bit of the off the field mental side, if we can really grow in that, I think that would be big for our girls.
You mentioned, that you coach the infield. You help with Christina on the offense infield. Talk about coaching defense because you spent a lot of time talking about your offense, your pitching, but your defense. Do you enjoy coaching the defensive side? What's it like coaching the defense?
Yeah, I think it's fun for me. So I, went into college and was a pitcher outfield, and then year three, I was having a lot of shoulder issues, and I couldn't really make that throw from the outfield, and so first base for us was kind of a revolving position at that time, and there wasn't anyone who'd really locked it down, and we had someone that needed to be in the lineup as the DH, and so that wasn't really somewhere they wanted me, and so they were like, okay, like let's play first base, and so. It was middle of the season and it, kind of just got a little crazy and like, right, like you don't have a ton of time to maybe focus on developing things in March. And so, I think I kind of just got thrown there and was just like, all right, let's figure it out. And then once I stopped pitching, I was able to personally focus a lot more on developing the inside or the infield part of things, and just like taking the time that I didn't have before to really focus on it. And so I think for me, like this year, in the off season, I was training infield and outfield. And so like I was able to kind of work through things and figure out like what do I like doing? How can I incorporate this with my athletes? And then like also what are they doing? What are they like doing? And how can I incorporate that? And then even this year with the Blaze, right? Like I played a lot more outfield, but in practice, right? Like I'm seeing what the infield does and I'm still practicing a little bit of infield. And so it's like, what drills are we doing that I can pull into coaching this season? And so I think for me, one of the fun parts of the game is just the continued learning. And so I think being able to coach infield and focus a little bit more on defense has kind of given me the chance as a player and as, a coach to continue learning in that way.
It's just so ironic how sports work sometimes. because as I mentioned earlier, your versatility as a player is helping you as a coach. I don't know how many people can do what you do, even as a coach, if you were asked to do what you do. But for you, I don't want to say it's simple, but you're comfortable with it because you've done it. You've done it all. Is it that? Have you noticed the irony there that it was meant to be to play all the positions you did as a player, to pitch, even though maybe at the time you didn't think you would pitch as you were growing, and it's helped you set you up now to being a coach because there's probably not a situation or a position or anything that you can relate to all the players on your roster and tell them, hey, I went through this. This is what you got to do.
Yeah, it definitely is helpful just to kind of have all those different experiences. It, again, like I said, it kind of feel like it might give me a little bit of a different perspective that I can share with them. Um, so yeah, it's definitely helpful having already kind of experienced a little bit of like being uncomfortable with the uncomfortable. And so now like I feel like I can attack that a little bit more.
Just trying to remember last year, you played Clemson in the regular season. Did you go there or did they come to you?
We went to Clemson last year.
What was it like for you to go back?
Yeah, so I'd been back once we had an alumni game that I went back for. And it's a little weird being on the other side, and just kind of being in the dugout. But I mean, they're always so welcoming and so supportive of me there. And so that's, it's always it's like a special thing to kind of return to. We play them every year, whether it be home or away. So, that's not going to end. And so there'll always be those opportunities to go back.
How'd the crowd react when they introduced you or when you saw you?
Yeah, so I had been told that we were just going to put a picture on the screen and they were going to announce that I was there, and then turns out that there was a camera in my face, which is my favorite thing ever. So yeah, I mean, it was cool, but I think too, like people knew that I was coaching at Furman, right? And so they knew we were coming back, and so it's obviously like that wasn't a surprise. But they're awesome, and again, always super welcoming of me there.
Darn media, just adding to the storyline. You knew Coach Rittman wasn't going to just like not honor you. Come on now. You knew Coach was
No,
going to
I
head
know,
somewhere.
I know.
How much, obviously he's been a big influence on you. What are some things from his coaching that maybe now that you're into coaching, you're like trying to apply some of the things you learned from him?
Yeah, randomly I find myself saying things that he says, and then I'm like, oh, okay. But I think for me, like, he's fantastic. However, a majority of my time positionally was spent with KJ and Courtney, just with like bullpens and then infield and hitting too. Like, I feel like Rittman and KJ and Court, they would say a lot of the same things, but KJ and Court said it in ways that made more sense to me. And like, right, and like that's kind of the fun thing about coaching too, of like you have all these different athletes, and it's like, how do you find what works for them? And I think because I was working with them so much positionally, the language they used was the same, and so it just connected better for me. And so like KJ's the one I mean, KJ's probably the one I talk to the most right now, and then like still talk with Courtney. Obviously, she's doing great things at Charlotte, and so um, all three of them have just been great, and they've really invested in me. Not just on the field but off the field. And so I think I definitely find myself being like, man, these are these things that I did and I really enjoyed. And I also know too, right, that if I need anything, I can reach out to any of them. And so that's definitely something that's really nice to know and kind of be able to lean back on.
Of course, for those that may not be aware, Courtney Brialt, you're speaking of course, who's the Charlotte head coach now, was on the Clemson staff, and of course, Kyle Jamison, the pitching coach there at Clemson, assistant coach, who won actually the D1 softball assistant coach of the year a couple years back. That's some good people to lean on.
100%. Yeah, no, they're awesome, and it's always nice to have people that have kind of seen me through a lot of different seasons and just kind of know how to kind of give me advice when I need it, or just those connections that just don't go away when you graduate.
What's one of the two sayings you said that you're like, oh, that's what Coach Rittman used to say? And
I
have you
feel like
had that? Have you had that moment? Because I've had other players that have told me they got to coaching, like there would be things their head coach would do that they didn't understand or liked, but then they would do it as a coach and they realized it, and then they would text their coach like, remember back then? I understand it. I get it now.
I don't think I've really had any of those moments, but
Okay.
I feel like the thing that I find myself saying, he always says, and I know this isn't his original, but he always says the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. And I find myself now that I'm on this side, either saying it or thinking it, and I'm like, oh my gosh, let's just do something different, please. But yeah, I feel like that's the one that I'm like, ah, man.
He has said that on this podcast. That's why I'm smiling. I'm actually all like he did. I'm holding it back here because when you said that, that's exactly. I remember there was we had him on about a year ago, so and it was when they had that slow start to the season, and he's like, "We got to be patient." And he said the exact line you just said. That is a go-to. I can't do his impression, but it was his voice, which you know very well.
Yeah.
It's just he's got an awesome voice. Like it's a great voice for audio. But yes, I do know that. That is it's sunk in.
Yep. Yep. He said it a few times, so it's one that I've pulled
Oh,
out here and there. Yeah.
did you know right away when it came out of your mouth, or did it take a minute? Like, oh, wait a minute, where? Yeah.
No, because I thought about it before and I was like, man, like I'm starting to think the way he was talking and now so yeah. I guess when you're around people long enough, it just, you can't help it sometimes.
Well, not too bad of a person if you're gonna,
No.
be influenced there on the deal there. Let's talk about a little bit, as you mentioned here, Coach Burkhardt. I do want to, we've talked a lot about Coach Mary Beth. What's it been like working with Coach Burkhardt? You mentioned you didn't know her as well going in, but obviously she played at Michigan and North Carolina, which is obviously where you played the year there when you were in Clemson. What's it been like collaborating with her?
Yeah, she's awesome. I mean, we like we share an office and so we have a great time. But I think it's been so cool just to be able to talk hitting with somebody who was also very successful in the same league that I was, but in a different way. And so kind of be able to be like, man, like I loved this drill for this. She's like, oh, I've never thought of that, or like I did it this way, or those kinds of things. And so just very, collaborative at work. And then also too, just like when we leave the office, right? Like she's someone I can hang out with and just, go get dinner or, there's always stuff going on in Greenville. We've gone to concerts or, we went to see like Sound of Music and just different stuff. And so it's just someone that, not just, as a coworker, but it genuinely, I can call a friend. So she's been awesome.
Obviously, as we're recording this, fall, students are coming back to school and everything like that. As you enter your second year, what are you looking forward to with this team in your second year? Some of the returners, you got new faces. Take us through the process. I'm not going to, drill you as far as what kind of team you think you'll have, but you obviously, there's some growth you're hoping, obviously, from year one to year two from them. And I'm sure, being comfortable with you being comfortable with them.
Right, 100%. I think a big area for us that we need to grow in from last year is the pitching staff. We, gave up way too many runs last year, and I think just we're uncompetitive and walked a lot of batters in certain situations. And our girls know that. And so we have three freshmen coming in and one transfer pitcher, along with a few returners. And so I think we're really excited to kind of see how that plays out. And then, yeah, like we brought in a middle transfer, an outfielder, and a pitcher. And so I think those are the areas that we really wanted to bring people in. And then just with the freshman class, I feel like we're just going to have a little bit more complete of a team. But yeah, there's the part too of like we're comfortable with them and they're hopefully comfortable with us. And so it's going to be less just newness and hopefully a little bit more of like just get back in the routine instead of let's start a routine.
Sounds like building the depth, which, watching you last year, clearly you didn't have the depth. You inherit, it is what it is. But part of that is building that depth there and the quality, yes, but the depth, because that gets underrated sometimes when you're in the season and you're competing.
Yeah, I mean, I think having, six arms on a pitching staff is always great. It gives you a little bit of room for injury or just, if someone's having an off week or those kinds of things. So definitely there, but yeah, positionally as well, just like how do we have a little bit more competition within positions too, right? Like I want our girls to have to show up and, like really compete for their spot instead of maybe feeling like they have a spot because there's no one else to play that position. And so I think that helps push them and only makes them get better in the long run.
What'd you learn from coaching the SoCon?
I think for me, like it's so much different than the P5 of just like we're not playing an RPI schedule, right? Like it doesn't really matter what my strength of schedule is during the year. It's like, can we win the SoCon tournament? And so that was definitely an adjustment for me. But I think just like any conference, right? Like anyone can win on any given day, and so it doesn't really matter what you've done up to that point. But it's like, how can we keep building and how can we keep growing so that, again, like that last week is when we come out and can really make a difference, right? Like, yes, you want to win the whole season, but, in college, it was like if we lost the game, it's like our RPI dropped, and it's like, here, that's not a thing. And so it's like, how can we just kind of keep building and building? And so there is a little bit of a different mindset there of it's not that the, season isn't important, right? Because of course every game is, but it's just important in a little bit of a different way.
Well, and the non-conference helps you prepare for the conference and quality wins. I know. Remember, I've spoke to Lindsay Fico, who was the coach at Mercer at the time, now FGCU, and the year they won the conference tournament, they had their ups and downs. But she told me that they beat Georgia, beat Georgia Tech, wins like that. The non-conference prepared them, so they peaked at the end and won that conference tournament. That's always been the story of this league. There's not a lot of separation at the top. It's just who's peaking at the right time, like you said, and that's part of the process here, especially in the league that is evolves as the SoCon does.
Right. Yeah, I think you're 100% right on that.
All right. Well, I will accept your resignation as a player now. Now that I was in denial when I first heard it. But listen, congrats on your retirement. You're at peace with it. I could hear it in your voice. And like I said, thank you for what you've done as a player, because you were an exciting player. So I'll speak on behalf of many that's watched you play. Wish you well as you're coaching. We'll be following you coaching there at Furman as well. Send my best to the coaching staff. And thank you so much for taking the time from your busy schedule to tell your story and talking to us here on In the Circle D1 Softball.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate you for having me and for letting me just talk a little bit about what's been going on.